So I am ready to start stenciling my upstairs bathroom tile floor. I'm pretty excited and nervous to do this, but I started out the beginning of this week. I cleaned the floor really good, and then I took a foam roller and I rolled on the first coat of chalk paint. I'm using the Sloan, and that was recommended by the stenciling company that I bought the stencil from. And I'm going to link all that information down below for you guys if you're interested in using the same products. But what's really important to remember is when you're working with chalk paint, it needs to dry really good in between each coat, and especially the first coat that you lay down. So after I roughed the tile up with some sandpaper and wiped it all down, I rolled on with the foam roller my first coat of the pure white in Sloan. And then I let that dry for 48 hours and I came back and did a second coat. I ended up doing about 3.5 coats, I'll say. After the third coat, it looked pretty good, but I just had like a few spots of the blue coming through. So I just went to those spots and just touch those up a little bit. And then I let this dry again another 48 hours. So it would be really well adhered before I started with my stencil. So the trickiest part, at least so far for me, was figuring out how I wanted to place the stencil. This is a pretty small bathroom. So you just want to think about where your starting point is at. I decided to kind of go in the center but off to the side so I can use my tub as a straight line. So I'm going to get started. Oh, one thing to remember, you can either roll it on or use a brush. The company really suggested using a brush. So I bought this brush from them as well. It has pretty stiff bristles, and I think that's important. Another thing is, you are better off a little bit of paint instead of having too much. So when I dip my brush into the paint, you want to make sure to take a paper towel and just swirl that around and get as much excess paint off as you can. And that is really going to help with the bleeding from the stencil. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and hopefully this turns out. Okay, here comes the nerve-wracking part, taking up the first stencil. Maybe I'll take the tape off first. That turned out pretty cool for my first one. There's always going to be some parts, especially with mine is a tile floor that has grout in between, so I can see where some of the grout lines were that I'm going to have to go back and touch it up, but overall I'm pretty stinking happy with it. Okay, so I have my first one all done and it's dried. That's really important. Some of these videos that I've watched, it's shown them pick it right up and set it right back down. But I'm not sure how they do that because there is going to be a little bit of bleed through underneath. You want to be really careful. And then also you need to kind of overlap your stencil. There's a place where you can line it up to make sure that everything is going to be straight and even for you. So you just want to make sure you give it enough dry time. Thankfully with chalk paint, it doesn't take too long to dry. So I have already measured and lined it up, and now I'm going to take my stencil back down and get this one painted. stenciled floor. Overall, I'm pretty happy with it. I love the look of it. With it being my first time doing anything like this on a tile floor, I think I would do things differently. I use the Sloan chalk paint, which I love that paint, but I don't think it was the best option for this floor, even though that is what the stencil company suggested to use. I found that for one, it was really hard to clean in between coats because you cannot get that chalk paint wet at all before you seal it. And I really let mine dry for at least 48 hours, if not longer than that, before I started to put on the sealer. And when I did, there were parts of the chalk that when this sealer hit it, it got it wet and then it smeared. So I was a little bit disappointed over that because some of the spots, if you look closely, not all spots, and there's just a few, but the really dark gray like would bleed in to the white. So that is not cute, and I'm not really happy about that. But it is what it is, and overall, because it's kind of a busy pattern, I don't think people are going to see that. So I've done 4 really good coats. I chose to brush it on just so I wouldn't get a lot of air bubbles with rolling it. So I'm about to put my 5th and final coat of this polycrylic on, and then I cannot wait to get this tape off and to get this bathroom back together. Okay, so I am all finished with my bathroom stenciled floor, and I am pretty excited with it. It took several days to finish this project just because I had to do so many different layers and wait for the dry time in between, but it was totally worth it. If you checked out the video at the beginning, you saw that this was really old blue tile. So I highly recommend checking into painting your tiled floors. If you just don't have the energy to take up your old tile and put down new, or if you can't afford it at the moment, it's a really good in-between solution. So I'm loving this stencil. I'm going to link what I use down in the description below. The only thing I think I would have done different is not use the chalk paint. Other than that, I'm super happy with it. So I hope you got some good ideas for something in your home, and I can't wait to show you the rest of the bathroom redo that we did up here. So subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate you guys so much doing that, and when you hit that red button and subscribe, make sure you hit the bell, and then you will get notified of our other videos that are coming up. So thanks so much, and stay blessed.